Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the regular council meeting of February 21st, 2023 to call it to order. So we've got a couple late items here, and we've also got a request to remove item 5B3, moving to 6D. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor 80. All those in favor? Okay, motion's carried. Move to 6D. So just an approval of the agenda. So recommendation that the agenda for the regular council meeting of February 21st, 2023 be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Randawa, second by Councillor 80. All those in favor? Motion's carried. All right. And item number 4, sorry, Madam Corporate Administrator, do we have any public comments that carry over?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This would be an opportunity for any members in the gallery to speak to items on the agenda this evening.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome any members of the public to speak to any items on the agenda. Yeah, my name's Sorry, sir. Do you mind stepping up to the microphone? Thank you. Yeah, we just got some folks on Zoom here just so they can hear you.
Yeah, my name's Gary Gunther. I have the pleasure of doing landscaping and lawn maintenance for the 4 hotels owned by Teresa. The one I have a big concern for, though, is at Parkside. For what you guys are thinking about doing is to really affect a lot of the people that come over and have picnics in the green space in the park. Beside Parkside, I don't know if anybody has been there, but we have a lot of people that come over and kids come over to enjoy a nice little picnic in the park. The problem is, unfortunately, I asked a few of them why they just don't go down to that park down at the end of the road there, and they said because of unfortunate that there's a lot of belligerent people drinking there. Not good for the kids. They don't want to be around a bunch of people drinking and smoking pot. So I've had the pleasure of meeting a few of the kids that come down, and as I said, it's the regular families that actually get a chance to get out there, enjoy the green space, very upkept area for kids, and it'd be a shame to lose that space that the families enjoyed, not just the park, but the whole fact that they have an opportunity to get out there and enjoy a nice dinner that they get from McDonald's. And the one thing I'll say about the kids that come there, we supply a garbage can for them. Majority of them actually do put their garbage in the garbage can. They appreciate that they can play, and they play ball and enjoy that park. So it would be a shame to see that taken away from them.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
I'm not sure if we're addressing any issue that's actually on the council agenda this evening. Am I missing something? This is very specific to address an issue that's coming up on the regular meeting agenda.
I came to City Hall to ask the question about the area that I'm presently using as a business, and I wanted to know that you guys selling, maybe already sold this piece of land which I'm presently using. I want to know exactly what's the plan is, how you're gonna do this one. They said no, they're not allowed to discuss it. And I saw in the newspaper that they are closing the one of the section of this land which you are selling, and it was in the newspaper. That's why we came here, because nobody telling us what you're doing.
So again, Mr. Chair, the conversation is completely out of order if it's not addressing an item that's specifically coming up on the agenda, and I just don't see it on our agenda this evening.
Okay, then could you tell us what you're doing? This the portion of
Sorry. the chair needs to rule on whether this conversation is even in order. I'm sorry to be this way, but this is a really specific
Sorry,
opportunity for people to talk directly to the agenda. So, Mr. Chair, I'd ask you to rule.
Sorry, Councillor Cunningham, go ahead.
The bylaws C, is this not what they're talking about?
If it is, I'm quite willing to have it continue.
Which item was that, Councillor Cunningham?
It's bylaw.
Item C.
Ah, okay. Fair enough.
Dr. Buchan?
Mr. Chair, no, I'll confirm that I think this is related sufficiently to the road dedication bylaw, even though they're speaking to the disposition notice that was sent out.
Yes, thank you very much. Perfect. And we will carry on as follows. Thank you. Sorry about that. Continue.
Okay, so this area shows on the map, on the advertising, this is the exact where we're using entrance to our business. And I want to know what you guys doing and how you're going to close this area which we're using only entrance to our business. How you closing this area so that how we're going to do the business?
Sorry, Dr. Buchan, did you want to jump in there?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The agenda item here is for members of the public to make comments on agenda items. It's not an opportunity to get into discussion or negotiation. Having said that, I would like Mr. Pucci to speak to whether or not this road dedication bylaw would impact access to Mrs. Lee's property.
Thank you, Dr. Buchan. Yeah.
Thank you through the chair. So the property that Mrs. Lee is talking about is a PID property. So it's actually a fee simple piece of property that extends on Prince Rupert Boulevard, and which is a smaller portion of Prince Rupert Boulevard to the corner. We have that's not what is on the agenda today, but there's a purchase or there's a potential disposition that is there. But the top part of that parcel that is at the access to the Mrs. Lee's property has been protected through a road dedication. So there is the top part that is the access to that property has been protected as a road dedication, and the remainder of that parcel is what is being proposed to be disposed of by the city of Prince Rupert. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Pucci. Councillor Cunningham, you had a few thoughts?
Sorry. I was up looking at that property today, and there's two white pegs there, one at the top by 11th and one down towards the end. Is the line between those two white pegs what we're discussing on, if you're standing, say, on the 11th Avenue looking at it, would the line between those two white pegs be the property that we're disposing of on the right-hand side? Yeah.
What is it? I have a picture of it. If anybody want to see this, do you want to look at it?
Well, my question is the line from one white peg to the other, the line, is that the cutoff point? Because what being sold and what impacts what, I looked at the map you've got. It's very small, hard to determine, but when I went up there and looked at it today, there was two white pegs there, and I just want to know if the line between those two white pegs is the actual line.
So, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. I just Dr. Buchan, he can answer that for you. Sorry. You can jump in.
Mr. Chair, I'd encourage you to give advice that the comments you're there to receive comments, not to discuss or have comments back and forth. It's about council receiving comments on specific items on the agenda. Director Pucci I think, said that the road dedication will not impact legal access to Mrs. Lee's property. I will ask Director Pucci to answer Councillor Cunningham's a question about the pegs, but this public comment period is about you receiving input on items rather than discussing items on the agenda.
Thank you, Dr. Buchan.
Thank you through the chair. Unfortunately, I haven't been to the site to see the pegs, so I can't tell you if they are property post pins or pegs, or if they're what's called witness posts, which I'm not sure. There'll be labels on them, but I can provide mapping for council and that shows what's overlaid onto aerial that shows what is proposed to be disposed of, what is proposed to be kept and held for dedication for proper access, and so on and so forth, if that's something council wishes. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Pucci. Dr. Buchan?
Mr. Chair, I further advice for council. What's on the agenda for tonight is third reading. Director Pucci can bring back the clarification when if council proceeds with third reading before council considers adoption of the bylaw. So that question can be answered with clarity at the next meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Buchan. Thank you. Yeah, no problem. Any other public comments regarding agenda items this evening? Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We've got a recommendation that all items on the consent agenda be accepted and filed. Moved by Councillor Eadie, second by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Motion's carried. On to staff reports. So we're just looking for a report from the planning manager regarding a request for support for Rapid Housing Initiative 3.0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, this recommendation is that council give support to the City of Prince Rupert's applications for CMHC's Rapid Housing Initiative 3.0 fund. The City of Prince Rupert has been developing applications for funding to construct non-market housing for those in severe housing need through CMHC's Rapid Housing Initiative Round 3. Staff are requesting council formally give support to the application to be included in the application package. There are no budget impacts to this support. And this falls under the strategic priority F, or goal F, which is that the City of Prince Rupert will support and encourage new and renewed housing, working with industry, senior government, and First Nations. Thanks.
Okay, recommendation at this time is that council give support to the City of Prince Rupert's applications for CMHC's Rapid Housing Initiative 3.0 fund. That was moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. Any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Cunningham.
Okay, where exactly is this application for? It's just a blanket application as it sits now. Do we have specific areas we're looking at?
Uh, we have some proposed locations, and this will those will be indicated in the applications we submit. There's two sites right now that we're looking at. One is city owned, and one is downtown.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, item 6B, report from the Manager of Communications, Engagement, and Social Development regarding an update on Reconciliation Framework Committee development and policy work plan. Welcome.
Thank you. So you will have read in the report, this recommendation is that council support the development of a reconciliation / UNDRIP committee terms of reference through a process of tabletop discussions with Indigenous leaders and supported by staff, and also that council delegate 1 or 2 councillors to participate in the tabletop discussions in your meeting tonight. This speaks to the priority that council set in the strategic plan to continue the implementation of the reconciliation framework, and prior to developing a terms of reference for this committee, we really wanted to make sure that we had adequate community input in that process. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Awesome, thank you very much. Any questions? Councilor Adey, are you itching there? Oh, jump in. Yeah.
Just to clarify, do you have a preference in terms of 1 person or 2?
I do not. We just left it open in case there was more than 1 councillor that was interested.
We could have a reconciliation party if we're. It sounds like. Any members of council that would like to? Oh, sorry, Councillor Forster.
Thanks. I'm very excited to see this, and I'm strongly in favor of this. I did just have a question under section 3 for employment. I really like 3.1. I did have a question. Do we not already have a statement on our applications that indicates that we are an equal opportunity employer?
I do believe that there is a statement, but I don't believe that there is a broader policy that informs that statement. So one of the purposes would be to flesh out that policy.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that clarification.
No problem.
Thank you, Councillor Forster. I guess at this point, would we be looking to make a delegation as well? Perfect. I know 1 council member that would love to sit on this committee. Any others? Sorry, Terry. Sorry, Councillor Forster.
I thought you were looking for volunteers, and I was waving my hand to indicate interest.
Perfect. I can see the interest on the screen there. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Any objections or anything from members of council? Perfect. So recommendation at this time is that council support the development of a reconciliation and UNDRIP committee in terms of reference to a process of tabletop discussions with Indigenous leaders and supported by staff, and that council delegate 1 or 2 councillors to participate in the tabletop discussions.
Mr. Chair, can I ask council to be specific as to which councillor or councillors are being delegated?
Yes, Councillor Niche and I were just getting to that. Yeah, perfect. And at this time, to delegate Councillors Skelton Morvan and Councillors Forster to this committee. Okay, moved by Councillor Randawa, seconded by Councillor Adey. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, item 6C, report from the corporate administrator regarding the City of Prince Rupert Council meeting schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the end of 2022, a council meeting schedule was proposed and passed by council. However, in that schedule, there was 2 meetings that did not fall in line with the council procedure bylaw, which is every 2nd and 4th Monday. While it is completely satisfactory to have it in that manner, in order to be consistent with the bylaw, we're looking to amend the schedule to change the meetings from March the 6th to the 13th, and then from the 21st to the 27th.
Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Oh, sorry. Discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Cunningham.
Okay. Plans were made on the original schedule, and I know myself and one other councillor are not going to be available on that one particular date at the end, the 27th. And I, for one, will probably not even be in cell range to do a Zoom meeting. So I'd like to look at an alternate date because I know the 27th was the budget presentation. So if we can look at another date after, or I mean previous to that, that would, I feel, considering that we'd made all travel plans and everything already.
Dr. Buchan.
Mr. Chair, what the report was simply trying to bring the meeting dates in alignment with the bylaw. It's not a concern for staff if this change is not made. If it's okay with council, those dates can remain. However, we will need to have a special committee of the whole meeting for introducing the draft budget to council towards the end of March. So if council wants to leave the current schedule as it is and simply pass on this report, that would be fine with staff. What I would ask though is if council would be available for a special committee of the whole meeting on March the 22nd. Would council be available for March the 22nd special committee of the whole for the budget?
By ruling of doodle poll, it looks like we are available. Councillor Forster, sorry, was that a good date for you as well? I got nods in the room, so I didn't see yours.
I just want to double check because the calendar that's in our package has 2 March 22nds, one on the Tuesday, one on the Wednesday. So are we meeting on the Tuesday or the Wednesday? I'm for both. I just want to make sure I'm.
That's a fine question. We're meeting on the real 22nd. Unfortunately, the 21st was mislabeled, so it would be Wednesday the 22nd for absolute clarity.
Thank you. Sorry.
Perfect. Absolute clarity received. So it sounds like we're in the works of a friendly amendment. Perfect.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I don't even think I mean, you can just receive and file the report. You don't need to make any actions, and we'll schedule accordingly.
Perfect. That works even better. So, Madam Corporate Administrator, for formality's sake, do we have a motion on the floor? Or we just move on. This is great. Perfect. Okay, on to item 7A, Madam Corporate Administrator.
We have the new item 6D, which is the water report from Director Pucci for 6D.
Thank you kindly. Director Pucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So originally this report was to receive and file. We are putting forward a recommendation to receive the report as well, but to direct staff to proceed to the RFP. So during the last little while, we've gone through the RFEI, so it was an expression of interest. There was interest from proponents that are interested in our water treatment program and project, and the idea was that we would move forward with an RFP. The RFP is still a process where we would not be committing or moving forward with anything until council was fully aware of what the proposals looked like, but it is a a procedure to get us to the next step to find out proposals and get a little bit more in depth with the proponents and what the opportunities are. So you have the memo that was requested by council and with recommendations, and then what the staff would like is the opportunity to move forward with proposals and bring those proposals after reviewed back to council for review. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Pucci. So recommendation as it stands is that council receives the attached memo and directs staff to proceed to the RFP. Moved by Councillor Niche. Second by Councillor Randhawa. Discussion? Councillor Adie?
And just reflecting on the experience we had with this proposal, that there was a public advocacy group that was very interested in the directions that it suggested. So I don't have any objection to, moving towards next steps, as it were, but I do think that it would be important for us to identify a point at which those people who had concerns about the original idea have a chance to respond in some way to what is, I think a very detailed look at the advantages and disadvantages of various options, which is part of what I think that was being sought after. I do think that there may be an interest in the public in coming back for another discussion about those. So I guess my question is, if we move this forward and give you the direction to go to the RFP, is there still within that process a point at which the public's going to have a chance to respond?
Director Pucci?
Thank you. Through the chair. So yes, this is still a non-binding process where we are truthing out and going through to find out a little bit narrower where this project could go and what the effects of it will be. I will say that we have taken that group's questions. There were, I believe, 9 or 11 of them. I forget how many there were, but we were waiting to put that out live until after council has received this memo. So tomorrow, if we move forward with this, all the questions that were brought forward will be answered on an infrastructure page that will be ready to go live. And so I know there was several questions, and we have answered all of them fully. And again, yes, we would not be committing anything at this point except moving forward with the proposal process, and we can take council's direction on when to sit down with this group, or if it and at what type of venue and how in depth, if it's during the process, before the process, or after the process. But again, this is not a time that we're signing anything. We are just really narrowing the information gap that we have right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Pucci. And Councillor Cunningham?
Keeps turning off. Somebody's against me tonight. It's a plot. But I think we have to be very transparent on this. There's a lot of misconception out in the community about different things to do with this. And it's also a very involved project with a lot of different varying degrees to it. And I think this is something we have to be very transparent on and get it out to the community. So I mirror your comments exactly, Nick.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Any further discussion, Council? Okay, all those in favor? Motion's carried. All right, on to bylaws. So 7A, City of Prince Rupert Fire Control and Protection Amendment, bylaw number 3515, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Prior to council doing fourth and final reading, staff is recommending to return to third reading to make 2 small amendments to the bylaw, both in section 1B, the first in section I, where the word smoke would be changed to smoking, And in section 2, where non-combustible would be changed to combustible.
Those are pretty distinct clarifications. I think that would be helpful. Perfect. Yeah, moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. All right. 7B, the City of Prince Rupert Road Dedication Bylaw number 3512, 2023. Recommendation that Council give third reading to the City of Prince Rupert Road Dedication Bylaw number 3512, 2023. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. Any discussion? Councillor Cunningham?
Seeing as there's some confusion on the property line or the line for this, I'm hoping before we do fourth and final reading on this that Director Pucci will get back to us with a more detailed description of exactly what's being done here. There seems to be some confusion as to the entry to Mrs. Lee's property, as well as there's a hedge there and some other, there's two very large trees, one a Ponderosa pine, the other a cedar, and I'd hate to see any of those have to be taken down. So I'd really like to get clarification exactly where this line is and what's being affected for next meeting before we do final reading.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cunningham. And Councillor Forster?
I wanted to make a motion to postpone the third reading until the next council meeting. I don't know if that's in order, perhaps somebody clarify, but I think we could make a motion to postpone.
Okay, sorry, and Dr. Buchan, sorry, you wanted to jump in there?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Council can make a motion to postpone. The staff, we undertake to provide a report out, in responding to whether or not this has any impact on access, responding to the questions that have been raised about the posts and survey, and advising as to what the purpose of this is. And we can have that for the same meeting that council would consider adopting or defeating the bylaw. Postponing would simply make two more steps rather than one more step. So council's capacity to say yes or no to this would be maintained by proceeding at this point. I would note that the purpose of this is to enable the owner of Digby Towers to acquire the land so they can provide parking, and the purpose of that is so that they can open the renovated Digby Towers for housing. This is to facilitate housing.
Thank you kindly, Dr. Buchan. Sorry, Councillor Forster, did you still want to move forward with the motion?
Respectfully, yes, I would if I have someone to second it.
Councillor Cunningham?
Sure.
Okay, we have a seconder, sorry for discussion. Okay, and Councillor Niche.
We've got a building that's completely renovated and they're waiting for parking. So to me, delaying this by another meeting is only delaying people finding housing. So I think the questions that are asked of us to be answered can still be given to us by fourth reading. And if at that point we do not agree with it, then we can, deny at that point. But to delay it an additional 2 to 3 weeks because for no particular reason other than, it's not going to change what we can do. So I think we should continue on and do third reading this evening and get the information. The aerial photo that was that Mr. Pucci said he could provide for us that shows where the property lines lie, and then we can use that in our fourth reading to make the final decision. I don't think delaying this by 2 extra or 3 extra weeks is doing anybody any good when we can still do the same thing in the same time period.
Thank you, Councillor Niche. Any further discussion, members of council? Councillor Cunningham?
I concur with Councillor Neese that by delaying or postponing it, we're not accomplishing anything, Councillor Forrester, because the next council meeting with the information we're going to get, we can decide A or nay for it. And it would just mean bringing it back to third reading and then fourth reading and final. And the gap in between is two weeks where to me it would be irrelevant, although I sympathize with what you're trying to do.
Any further discussion on this side of the room? Okay, so we'll call to question. All those in favor? So the motion. There was a mover and a seconder already. Yeah, that's the sorry, the motion that I called. We're having one of those evenings where we stop and reevaluate to find that we're exactly where we're supposed to be. So okay, so all those in favor of the amended motion?
Sorry, are we voting on the motion to postpone?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't see a hand go up. Okay. You and all those opposed? Perfect. It's a unanimous opposition. Okay. All right. So we'll go back to our initial motion. So we've got 7B. So our recommendation that council give third reading to the City of Prince Rupert Road dedication bylaw number 3512/2023. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Oh, sorry. Discussion. Councillor Eddy.
Just a question, do we need to include a direction to Mr. Pucci to come back with that information, or can we just proceed understanding that that's going to happen?
Mr. Chair, direction is not needed. Staff have noted the requirement and will have the report for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you kindly. Any other discussion? Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Item 7C, City of Prince Rupert Road dedication bylaw number. Oh, sorry. Let's see here. Yeah, road dedication bylaw number 3513/2023. Sorry. What's that one? Oh, okay. Sorry. So a recommendation that council give third reading to the City of Prince Rupert Road dedication bylaw number 3513/2023. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Eddy. Discussion? Councillor Eddy?
Just a question on whether there has been any concerns expressed by the public towards this one beyond the public meeting.
Mr. Chair, there have not been any emails received by corporate administration.
Perfect. Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Cunningham?
Wasn't the discussion before the meeting in opposition to it?
Not this one. There was a previous item. Yeah. Okay. All right. All those in favor? Okay. Motion's carried. Item 7D, City of Prince Rupert Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 3479/2022. The recommendation as follows is that council give third reading to the City of Prince Rupert Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 3479/2022. Moved by Councillor Niche. Any seconders?
I will second it for the purposes of putting it up for discussion.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Eddy. Discussion? Councillor Cunningham?
My question to planning is, what's the difference just leaving it the way it is and putting forth this to council, other than council gets to pass it without a public meeting. I see nothing wrong with leaving it the way it is right now, and then if there is a variance for heights or anything like that, it would have to be a public meeting, and then these same people could say what they want to say.
Dr. Buchan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Council can certainly leave the bylaw as it is. And if somebody comes in and wants to have a building taller than what the OCP says, and requires a zoning bylaw to achieve that, what would be required would be an official community plan amendment and a zoning amendment. The effect that making this change would simply say that in those instances where council feels that a building higher than the 2 floors it would not be a significant view obstruction, that it would be willing to consider in a zoning bylaw amendment. So in any case, if a building is taller than it should be, that requires a zoning amendment, there has to be there would be a public process, and the public would have the opportunity to speak to it. So that is, the effect of this. The purpose of this is simply to send a signal through policy that in cases where a taller building would not have view obstructions, council would consider. You don't have to do this. This is just indicating a policy nuance that says that subject to process and there being, in your opinion, no view impact, that you would consider a taller building. This, I don't think this has been done in with the mind to be seen. Tall buildings like we have down there with the Highlander. This is more in the regards to buildings that might be 3 or 4 stories. But this is purely discretionary on council's part, and it's we'll take your direction on this.
Councillor Eddy?
Yeah, I just want to reflect that, it was fairly clearly when we invited public comment, we heard that there are concerns, and I appreciate the concerns, and I defend the right of the public to use this forum to express those concerns. I guess my own worry is, I can frame it maybe in the form of a question, and I think you've gone part way to answer it, Dr. Buchan, but I guess my question then would be, let's take a hypothetical example. Somebody wants to build a building, say on the scale of the Highliner, which is clearly a sore point with some people. Under the current circumstances, what is the process whereby somebody could pursue that application, and what degree of public input would be allowed in that process? And then compare that to under the proposed changes, what would be the process, and what would be the opportunity for public expression of concerns? I'm not sure if I'm being very clear with my question. But I'm asking, how would that building get pursued under the current circumstances, and how does that change under the proposed amendments?
Dr. Buchan?
Mr. Chair, under the current policy wording in the official community plan, what would be required would be an amendment to the official community plan and an amendment to the zoning bylaw for any development that requires a zoning bylaw amendment. So it would be 2 bylaws. What's being proposed is language that would change that to just 1 bylaw amendment, and that'd be the zoning bylaw amendment. Council and the guidance in the policy is such that the council would need to rationalize that there is not, significant view obstruction with the proposal. So in both cases, there's a public process. The zoning bylaw would likely require a public hearing. And we would likely recommend a public hearing because of the language in the official community plan, but it would be technically possible to do it without a public hearing and simply public notification.
Councillor Eddie?
Well, then I guess if I can stand in the shoes of the people that are expressing the concern, I think that anything that exposes the possibility of the whims of a future council simply choosing to go ahead and make decisions without protecting that public process, that ability for the public to chime in. I would be opposed to creating anything that allows for that discretion. If we can defend the public input part of the process by not supporting the proposed change, then I think we're doing a good thing, because I think that's what people worry about, is that at some point you'll have thrown away their ability to actually impact a decision that they're concerned about. And I don't think we should do that. So I guess where I seem to be arriving at in terms of my own thinking is that given that under any circumstances, if somebody wants to pursue building a tall building, they can go ahead and pursue it. It's just different hoops to go through. That hasn't changed. What may have changed is the vigor of the public process that might emerge in opposition to that. And I'm not sure that we should compromise that public process.
Thank you, Councillor Eddie. Sorry, Dr. Buchan, can you clarify whether we have compromises in each component as it stands versus, and as layman terms as possible? And what I mean by that is, so essentially it's kind of a rephrasing of Councillor Eddie's previous question, where, because it sounds like there still would be a public process in this new proposed change.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There would be public process, open meeting process in both cases. We would contemplate public hearing in both cases, and I certainly would recommend public hearing in both cases. The question is whether it's one or two bylaws that would be changed. And this is certainly a council prerogative and on how it wants to present development opportunities in the town and the public processes that go with them. We don't have a strong position on this. We were trying to introduce some streamlining of process, not eliminating process, but some streamlining of process in considering a situation where buildings in the 1 to 2 story area might go 3 to 4 stories. Having said that, if with public concern, the council can certainly say no, keep it as it is.
Thank you, Dr. Buchan. I guess to clarify some of the understanding, to my understanding, it sounds like we, instead of having 2 agenda items ultimately and trying to manage the logistics of 2 different processes for 2 different motions, because we would have to change or amend or have a discretion around 2 different bylaws, this essentially would just streamline it into one.
For all intents and purposes, it'd be the same process. It's just there'd be 2 bylaws going ahead under the current circumstances and 1 bylaw with what's being proposed.
So getting 2 birds with 1 stone. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, we had Councillor Randawa, then we had Councillor Cunningham, and then Councillor Niche.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I try to understand, we are trying to help construction more, like speed up things, right? On the same time, like our council, like last council, we always in favor of involve public, but with this new bylaw in future councils, right, they might go like, okay, no, like, okay, let's change the zone, or they can say no public, they have ability then there, right? So we try to help construction, but on the same time we can uh, interfere in people's quality of life too. Let's say somebody make here 6 stories, right? So people behind, they can uh, stop their viewing, right? So I think I'm in favor of keeping the same policy, so people have like more opportunity in public hearing. So I'm in favor of keeping the same policy.
Thank you, Councillor Randhawa. Councillor Cunningham?
Okay, whether it's one or two, it's irrelevant. I think the more transparency we have in any public forum is good. We're here to protect the public's interest. And I think leaving it the way it is gives them more protection than not. If we go down the road, worst case scenario, we get a very pro-development council. They can make a decision, which is public notification, not a public hearing. And I think it's very important that we have the transparency in anything like this. One of the strongest points living in Prince Rupert is the natural beauty of our harbor. And anything that obstructs that natural beauty, to me, is not something we should mess with. That's just the way I feel about it. And I think it protects the public interest just to leave it the way it is and not mess with it at all.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Niche?
When I was first thinking about this, as little as half an hour ago, I was kind of more leaning towards it. But before you actually had to have a public hearing, and I do think this council is about public hearings and giving everyone their opportunity. And I guess because the way the provincial government changed it, saying that you don't necessarily have to have a public hearing when it comes to zoning changes, that does take away the possibility that someone could, they could just say, no, go ahead and do it. And so I kind of tend to agree with everyone so far, although that wasn't my thoughts about half an hour ago. But thinking, if it was still the old rule that we had to have a zoning, a public hearing for a zoning change, then I would be in total agreement to do this. But because there's that one little protection there, that's basically giving the opportunity for any council in the future to possibly just make that decision, I'm leaning towards striking this down. I do feel that these are usually done in one night anyways, as far as like a zoning change and an OCP change are done at the same time. So I think that there's really no major advantage to doing it. And I think that this council has always tried to move forward as fast as we can on any of those issues. So I tend to agree with everyone and just say that we should probably just leave it the way it is currently.
Any further discussion? Just to clarify, Dr. Buchan, are we losing a public hearing process if we go forward with this? Because I believe that wasn't necessarily, you mentioned it wasn't about elimination, so it's not necessarily that we're losing it, but I just wanted to clarify.
There is a prospect with the current wording that a council could waive the public hearing because it would be consistent with the zoning bylaw. If that is the main point, I think that council could amend the wording in this to say that it would, consider buildings higher than contemplated, subject to any enabling zoning bylaw being subject to a public hearing.
Councillor Nish?
I would have no problem with that, that motion if we were to do that, because it's all about that, I guess, that ability for, like, we've always been of the thought of putting a public hearing on no matter what. Whereas when the government changed that rule last year to make it so that they don't have to have those hearings, it kind of puts that extra, things can get done without having that public's chance. But, to me, eliminating that OCP, change is, I don't have a problem with that as long as the zoning change still has a public hearing so that people can hear it. So that would be, I guess, my motion then, is that I would agree with this change as long as any bylaw changes would have to have a public hearing in order for this to proceed.
Thank you, Councillor Nish. Okay. Sorry, Dr. Buchan, I guess to just kind of bring this idea together and kind of wrap it around, with the options is like that would kind of accomplish what we're seeking with this recommendation and finding that healthy halfway point of keeping that process in place. And what would be the recommended wording?
I will make a suggestion, and I'll also invite Planning Manager Pope to add any further comments. But what I'm looking at is an item 1C of the bylaw, where it says replace wording of 4 with a new wording for 4, adding at the end of that sentence, instead of a period after obstruction, a comma, saying subject to any zoning bylaw, having to subject to any zoning bylaw going through a public hearing process prior to adoption.
Okay, Planning Manager Pope. Yeah.
I wouldn't add anything to that. I think that makes sense.
Perfect. Okay. Devil's in the details. It looks like we found some wording.
So I'll move that.
So okay, moved by Councillor Nish. Are you seconding, or did you want a discussion? Second. Okay, discussion. Councillor Cunningham.
Okay, in no way with this new wording can somebody go more than 2 or 3 stories without having a public hearing. I want to make that very transparent that this is what we're protecting here.
Sorry, Dr. Buchan.
Excuse me, can I defer to Manager Pope for a minute?
Of course, yeah.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. So what that wording would mean that any proposed zoning amendment that would put the height of a building outside of the existing building framework would require a public hearing, which is the same process that would be followed with an official community plan amendment.
Just making sure we have clarification of that, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Any further discussion, members of council? Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, but I think for clarity, I mean, backing up to 1A, that framework doesn't limit to 2 stories. I mean, there's been a lot of conversation around 2-story framework. I'll read it. It considers up to 4 stories throughout most of the city core, with up to 8 stories along parts of, and this is the existing. Okay, so this is not being introduced as new. That's the existing framework. Most building heights are to be up to 4 stories throughout the city core, 8 stories to be considered in the Marina District, 6 stories in the hotel area. I just want to be, for council to be really, really clear, the framework exists already, and this is a process if you want to exceed the framework.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Further discussion? Councillor Eddy, you see the microphone finger is itching over there.
Well, I guess, thanks for the clarification, Mayor Pond. So maybe I'll ask in the form of a question. So the contemplated building heights up to 4 stories throughout the core, but 8-story buildings will be considered in a marina district. that wording is derived from the official community plan that we adopted last year. Is that correct?
That wording is in the official community plan that was adopted last year. That's correct. And basically the notion is that it gets lower as you get more towards the west.
So then my question would be then, if somebody proposes to build an 8-story building within the framework that you've just identified, is there a recourse then for the public as it stands to say, no, we object to that. That's going to destroy our quality of life and our viewscape.
The zoning bylaw would, if the zoning bylaw complies with the official community plan, it would be a public process, but council could waive the public hearing process. However, the staff view on this is that we would be recommending having a public hearing for a significant matter like that. Excuse me.
Thank you, Dr. Buchan. Sorry, Councilor Eden.
So just as a follow-up, I guess I'm still in the same position. I don't want to support anything that allows for the possibility of waiving that public input.
Dr. Buchan, when it comes to these specific sites or layouts or zones, is there a process? It sounds like with those pieces, there was some wording around if that affects sight lines and different things like that. Were there protections in place within that framework?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to defer to Manager Pope for the moment and see if she has any views on that.
Thank you, Dr. Buchan. Manager Pope.
Within the current zoning bylaw, the different zones specify specific building heights that can be built up to currently.
Yeah.
In generally speaking, those heights are based around consideration of viewscapes. If there were a proposal to amend the heights within the zoning bylaw that is aligned with the current building heights framework, then it would just be a zoning amendment. If it's higher than the current building heights framework, then currently it would need an official community plan. I believe beyond the limitations that are outlined in the zoning bylaw and in conjunction with the building heights framework, those are supposed to consider viewscapes already, and then any amendment that is proposed, viewscapes would be considered in the staff recommendation.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I find a lot of these discussions, it's not necessarily a difference of opinion, it's a battle of the understandings, where we can find solutions to this and kind of streamline the process. And government itself, I find, is a lot of redundancies in trying to overcome those. So if there's a way to streamline this while still protecting public interest and feedback, I think that we can move forward with that. Any further discussion from members of council? All right, moment of truth. All those in favor?
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure what we're voting on. Are we voting on the amendment that Dr. Buchan has added to the motion?
I believe that was the one that was moved and seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, and is that what we're voting on now?
Yes.
So not the main motion, but the amendment.
That would be correct.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll try that again. All those in favor? So it's just three of us. Okay. Any opposed? Did we get the mayor's vote? Sorry, Mr. Mayor, were you in favor or were you opposed? Because we have a split vote, 3-3.
I was in favor.
Okay, motion's carried. Okay. To section 8, any business arising? Sorry?
Apologies, Mr. Chair. I think we have to still vote on the main motion.
Yes.
Oh, we still have that one on the floor. Thank you. I appreciate that, Councilor Forster. Okay. So with item 7D, which was our original motion. So we've got the City of Prince Rupert Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 3479 2022. Recommendation that Council give third reading to the City of Prince Rupert Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 3479 2022. Sorry? I did vote. Yeah, I voted in favor. It was 4-3 and the motion carried. Yeah, it was 3-3. I didn't see the mayor's vote. Okay. We're having an evening this evening. Okay. Sorry, Madam Corporate Administrator, did we have a mover and seconder on the initial motion?
Yes, we did.
Because 45 minutes ago. Yeah.
Yes, we did, Mr. Chair. That was Councillors Niche and Ady.
Perfect. Okay. Any discussion on this motion? Dare I ask? Okay. All those in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Okay. Motion is denied. There we go. All right. Section 8. So on to business arising. Do we have any reports or any other? Sorry, Dr. Buchan, do we have any other additional business? Oh, I think you're on mute there.
Sorry, I was on mute, and no, I have no additional business to add.
Okay. Any reports and queries or questions from council? Councillor Cunningham?
We sort of jumped over the development activity report for January. File number ZBLA-21-01, 712 and 714 McKay Street. Application to rezone from R2 to RM3 was done in, it was received in April 2021, and it's been on hold since then. I'd like to know what's happening with that.
Mr. Chair, I think that was the report was accepted in the consent agenda, but we can ask Manager Pope to give any update that she's aware of on that file.
Thank you, Dr. Buchan. Manager Pope?
I will defer to Corporate Administrator on this.
Madam Corporate Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The file is currently with the applicant's solicitors, and once we receive the appropriate documentation, we're ready to proceed.
Perfect. Thank you, Kylie. Councillor Randall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So last week we had a very successful all-night basketball tournament, and I would like to thank all the organizers, city staff. They all did great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Randall, and I would second that as well. And just a thank you for all of those folks, the supporters and the organizers, the audience, and the athletes for coming to spend some time with us. And Councillor Forster.
Thank you. I also would like to offer my thanks to everyone who participated, and also to acknowledge that February is Black History Month, and it's an opportunity for us all to educate ourselves on some of the systemic racism that affects a lot of people. Our local library has had some really great books, and I took the opportunity to reread White Fragility, which is a really great book to help open eyes and bring clarity to struggles that people of color, including our Indigenous neighbors, are experiencing. So I just wanted to acknowledge that this month has been Black History Month, and there's still time for people to learn more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Forster. Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn. Sorry? Madam Corporate Administrator.
Thank you. You'll see in your agenda we'll need to adjourn to the closed meeting.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so I'd like it to motion to adjourn to a close under section 90A and G of the Community Charter. Moved by Councillor Niche, seconded by Councillor Randall. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you.